How's it going, guys? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting, and welcome back to the House of Fata Morgana, Requiem for Innocence. I'm glad to be back. I got sick last week. I'm still kind of under the weather. Best I can describe it is it seems I'm suffering from long COVID. Essentially, I just have a lot of fatigue. I also get nauseous super easy, but the fatigue is what's really affecting my life. I'm actually going to be talking to a doctor about it this week. But it essentially just means that I sleep most of the day, and like finding time to record is being a lot harder, but thankfully I'm keeping up with the schedule so far, so I'm happy to be here. But it also might mean this might be a shorter episode. I'm gonna do my best to at least finish like the backstage stuff, and then apparently there's something else that might pop up at the end. I don't know, everyone's been really vague about it, but just keep that in mind that for today, even if we're kind of close to the end, I think we're just gonna be wrapping up the backstage, but I think like we've gone over like the main story. So I think now we're going to be talking about some of the side stories, but that's just a guess. Anyway, let's jump right into it. Let's see if my voice will hold out. It should. I'm not having any throat issues, thankfully, anymore, so let's jump right in.
Jaren, this covers all the characters, right? We're all done here now? Because I'd like to be on my way. Aw, do you really not want to spend any more time with little me, Morgs? It has nothing to do with spending time with you specifically. But there are two men here I would like to get out of the presence as soon as humanly possible.
Morgana, please tell me I'm wrong here, and you're not putting me in the same category as him. It genuinely hurts being lumped in with that monster. I feel like I've been kicked in the gut.
So if you don't mind, I'll be taking my leave now.
And going where?
To see Michelle, obviously.
Every single time. Why does it always Michelle with you?
Because he's the one who ultimately led me to salvation.
You know, that doesn't nullify everything we had between us.
No, you did a perfectly good job of that all by yourself.
She's got a point, man.
So long, everyone.
Wait.
Jackie, this is the time for you to go after her. You locked up both Morgs and half her soul. A little stalking should be a piece of cake for you.
That just makes it sound like I'm some sort of deviant. Dang it. I was gonna go after her anyway. I won't just sit here with that thumbs up my butt while she goes to see him.
Break a leg. And not hers. Let me tag along too. This sounds like fun.
Just the three of them awkwardly sitting here.
What? Are you leaving me alone with the two of them?
Yep.
So, Michelle, what book shall we read together next?
The classics we read last time also put me to sleep. A harsh reminder of how much my mind is acclimated to the times.
Then how about something lighter and more modern? Say perhaps Harry Potter.
What the fetch? What in the heaven's name was that?
Is someone trying to break in? I'll call the police.
You stay there. I'll go look.
Why was there no nicer way to get here? And what in my father's name are you doing here?
I couldn't let you go see him alone.
Get your hand off me, you wretch.
Wretch?
Morgs, you're squishing me. Could you get off? Oh, for heaven's sake.
I know that voice.
So do I. What a nightmare. Nice to see you again. What? Why are you staring? Oh, you don't understand how we just popped out of nowhere? Well, you don't know. This is another one of those backstage extras, so a little bit of space-time distortion is... Oh my gosh! She's the most adorable thing I've ever seen! What? Look how small she is! Oh, I just want to squeeze her to bits. I would really rather you didn't. You agree with me, don't you, Michelle? Isn't tiny Morgana the most precious thing in the world?
She is a lovely girl, yes.
Oh, is that so?
I beg your pardon! Wonderful, the noisy one's here too. The Michelle I know would never say that. You're supposed to be an emotionally and socially stunted shut-in. A lot can change in a millennium. I seem to recall speaking my mind during the final chapter anyway. 1,000 years isn't long enough to dethrone King Neat. Sorry to burst your bubble, but I am currently both employed and in a relationship that lets me go on dates outside. Oh! I nearly fell asleep just listening to you describe that. That aside.
You're looking quite young, Jacopo.
Well, it's a long story.
Beep, beep. And who's this young lady? I'm Jaren, the heroine of Requiem for Innocence. Excuse me? That's my title, thank you very much.
Since you've accepted your position in the story's heroine, does that mean you also accept you have a fated connection to me, the hero?
Never mind, Jaren, you can keep the role.
At least consider it!
I'll bring everyone something to drink.
I go, Michelle and like Giselle are just so chill with the whole situation. Like, they not only like completely conceive of it all, they just kind of like, yeah, whatever. We've lived through weirder than this.
Well, thank you for catching us up. It's been a while since we've done one of these. How exciting.
And it's also kind of nice to be in a different role this time.
Going around talking to everyone is a lot of work, yeah. I would have much preferred you to him.
What are you doing standing over there?
We're split up like light side and dark side groups.
The two of us have been through so much already. I'd like for the rest of our lives to be nice and relaxed. Even outside of canon.
Our story was happy from the start to finish.
It was a very lovely days, yes.
3 seconds till Jackie's gasket blows. 3, 2, 1.
Don't give a countdown, you lout. It doesn't even make any sense. You can't end the main story like that. And then follow it up with a bunch of empty fluff. Who gives a darn about you eating popcorn? I do. Right here. Right here. This guy. I cared. I loved it. Jacopo, you can go eat it. I'm sorry. You were probably the most relatable character, but I still think I'm clearly Team Michelle. I mean, come on, who wouldn't be? Michelle, Giselle, and Morgana, my favorite characters. I mean, they're the main characters, yes, but how can you not love them?
Do you prefer your sweet or saucy, Jacopo?
Salty. You are what you eat. No! That said, I do agree that such a lighthearted, relaxed story feels out of place in the same package as Requiem. However... What? It's entirely your fault Giselle had to spend a millennium as the maid. If you were just able to behave like a reasonable, damned human being, all of this could have been avoided.
Everyone gets a chance to lay SmackDown. Jackie here. It was a long, long time ago, though. Let's put the past behind us and enjoy this special occasion. Besides, that period of my life is just a bad memory to me anymore. Sure, it was hard to get through. But I wouldn't be here with Michelle, as happy as I am, if it wasn't for that. All's well that ends well. The main game may have had a good ending, but Requiem certainly did not.
Well, at the same time, Requiem was just the prelude to the main game. So technically, it's part of the same story, just a better fleshing out of it. Alright, let's talk about something else. I'm gonna die of an ulcer at this rate. Michelle, Jaren was telling me something curious earlier. And what would that be? That you're, well, how should I put this? Just spit it out, you're giving me the creeps. That you're physically only partly a man? First of all, where on earth did Jaren hear that? And second, why the hell would you bring that up at casual conversation topic? I guess it's safe to assume she was telling the truth. I'm sorry, Snowy, I never meant to hurt anyone. But she frequently does because her head's as empty as Jacopo's heart. Also, is Snowy referring to me? Cute nickname, huh? Isn't it? Sure, I suppose. Call me whatever you want, fine. Do you have a nickname for me? Our names both start with J sounds, so that'd get confusing. Let's see, how about... Boo! Don't you finish that word!
Okay, Ellie it is. Yay, it feels so nice to be called by a nickname.
Quite frankly, it's not the detail I want to go spreading around. As my body was the source of much torment in my life.
Michelle and I traveled down similar paths. I was a saint who became a witch, and he, an angel, became a demon. Or that was how we were seen by others, at least. The both of us, we are like unto God. And you are far from God as a man can fall.
Well, that doesn't change what I think. And you're just an ordinary girl. Nothing special, breathing the same air as me. While I was the one who helped her turn back from a witch in the main game. You should offer her your hand next time, if there is a next time. And don't let go.
I've made it perfectly clear I have no intention of our souls crossing paths ever again. And he's already said his goodbyes as well.
However insignificant the chance may be, it's human nature to want to root for it to happen.
One such probability was the last scene of our story in this game. We managed to reunite. I'm sure everyone else will too. If by some cruel twist of fate I am to cross paths with him again, I will still never forgive him.
I don't expect you to.
In any event, didn't the author say somewhere I was supposed to reincarnate into a butterfly or a cat or something similar?
Ideas come and go. Consider that yet another of many possibilities. That would have been a much crueler twist of fate than anything. Requiem was already much darker than I had anticipated. All I had seen before were the bits and pieces of his past. It's hard not to pity him for the way everything crumbled around him in his younger days. And I don't know how the ending played out either. I always assumed he just kept his feelings to himself and let Morgana die. So I was surprised when he actually told her at the end. Of course, he waited far too long, and none of it got through to her.
What's the matter, Snowy? You're staying off into space.
It's nothing. In any event, good luck to you.
I don't need your darn well wishes.
Very well, then.
It'd be amazing if we could meet up in the present day too, Morgs. I bet we'd be around the same age, maybe in secondary school together. We could even be in the same class. That'd be great. I would drop out the first day. Aw, why do you have to be like that, Morgs? You never stop talking. Then I'll try to talk less. But I really want to be your friend again, Morgs. And there's all sorts of stuff we can do together, like go shopping for cute clothes. And because I'm such a big doof, my grades would be terrible. You could help me study for tests and stuff. Oh, and then there's Francois. He could be our teacher. It'd be perfect.
A perfect nightmare. I expect that class would show up on the news within the first month. We, seem to have gotten off track. May I ask why you're asking about what's between my legs? I just thought I might have to be more careful with my words if it was true. Are you even capable of choosing your words? Oh, for the love of God.
Your tongue's gotten much sharper, Michelle.
I have had 1,000 years to work on it. Now, you don't need to get weird or walk on eggshells. I am a man. That is all there is to it. Yes! That is all there is to it! That's all there ever is! My being intersex does not change who I know myself to be. Yes! And this body no longer cause for fear or anxiety. I have made peace with who I am, and you should too. Very well. It seems prying was not required. I will continue to treat you the same as I always have. Please do. You know, while I'm not all that fond of your high and mighty act, that was actually moderately decent of you. Only moderately. You're much more agreeable like this. Far less grating to speak with as well.
Lord/businessman Jacopo is a massive riot, though.
Never once have I tried to get a laugh out of someone.
Oh yeah, Jacopo, in your description of the main game's website it said that you will readily toss aside anything to achieve your goals. It just struck me that you yourself were one of those things you threw out.
Dumped his whole life right into the garbage, he did.
put a sock in it. Try to be a little more sensitive about what you get rid of next time. At heart, you're not completely evil, man.
So back to the previous topic, Snowy. You said your body's the same as in the life before?
That's correct. I used my wish at the end of the main game to reunite with Giselle. But I have no misgivings about my body anymore. I've embraced who I am, and am firm in my identity, but the most important thing to me is being with her.
And together there's nothing we can't accomplish.
Indeed.
Save it for when you don't have company.
Well, I hope you have a fulfilling life. What?
What?
Why are you all giving me that look? Can you blame us? No one expected to hear those words come out of your mouth.
The sky's gonna fall tomorrow. Did you eat something you shouldn't have?
Every time I try and say something nice, it always happens.
With that and Morgana, we've got double blessings. We're unstoppable.
We have a long, happy life ahead of us.
Well, time we hop back to our own time period. Yes, you two go on home. I live here now, in between the two of them. It's the perfect fit for me, in every sense of the word. There's no room for either of you. Farewell, Jacopo, Jaren. May our souls never cross paths again in the boundless sphere of fate. Should I drag her back?
No.
What? Hey, let go! Get your filthy hands off me!
Quit whining and move your butt.
Do you want me to bite you?
Go right ahead.
God, that little brat, she actually did it! Bye, Snowy. Bye, Ellie. It was nice meeting you. And thanks for helping Jackie open up a little.
We didn't do anything.
I hope we can all meet again someday. I'll miss you, Jaren. Me too.
Goodbye, until we meet again.
Bye. Vroom! She was quite a lively little girl.
That she was.
But I had fun. There were some nice surprises.
Indeed, young Morgana showing up was certainly unexpected.
Plus Jacopo being unusually open and Jaren being the bright ball of energy were both wonderful. But the best part of all was definitely getting to see you smiling so much with everyone else, Michelle.
Oh, you don't need to worry so much about me anymore, Giselle. Oh, they're so cute. They're so stinking cute. Whoa, what was that? I think it was a glitch there. Did you see that flicker?
Woo! Where'd the space-time distortion take us this time? Get your hands off me, or I'm going to curse your soul for all eternity.
I thought you were saying it had nothing to do with me anymore, including no curses.
Why you suddenly drive back on your high horse?
More like I'm back in my game.
Please, just let this be over. Just because we're currently outside of canon doesn't mean I'm going to ignore anything you did in canon. All the pain and misery you caused me is still real. No amount of joking will ever make it go away. You're an irredeemable monster.
I know. I just hope one day I can help make it so the good memories far outnumber the bad. I know you said we won't ever cross paths again, but I still want to atone for what I did to you. To you, the other half of your soul. That's all I want.
Your efforts will be in vain.
Maybe, but I'll deal with that when it comes to it.
I hate to interrupt this serious conversation, but how long are we going to have to wait here off to the side? Hey, look, it's the boy formerly known as Mel. What? Then who am I now? And who the heck are you? I'm Francois's pet.
Hey, don't use that name, you buffoon. He'll think you're talking about me.
What? You mean that man standing right there? Jean-Francois Berner. I thought he was he's a bit younger than I remember. I knew you were a creep, and now you're making people into pets? You've hit rock bottom.
You want another taste of my fist, huh, punk? For the record, I am not the man she calls Francois. I won't get into the details, but I just had to assume his name.
Sure, whatever you say. Wait, hold on a second. Maybe I'm just imagining it, but you, Berner, or whatever your name is, don't seem much like a stuck-up jerk as I remember. The boy formerly known as Mel is starting to freak out. Stop that! I'm not formerly known or anything. It's the Saintess! Oh my gosh, I can't believe that she's so tiny, a mini Saintess. She's adorable. Would you please stop shouting in my ear? You're going to make me go deaf. Come on, have tea with me over here, Saintess. I got rose petals to put into teacups to make it even yummier. And there's also cake loaded with sugar. Ooh, that sounds great. I want some cake too. I don't know who you are, but I'm such a nice girl. I'll let you have some too. Yahoo! I'm not going to have snacks with you. And your shirt is unusually clingy considering how much you despise the other half of my soul. The first star goes whoosh right under the bridge. It's spreading. It's pretty crazy how girls can go from nothing to friends in the blink of an eye, huh? Oh yeah, and who's the dirty hobo? I don't look that bad. Every boy other than my first and second brothers are gross by default, so you'll have to try a lot harder than that. When Jackie starts trying to impress people, he gets drunk on money and power, so please don't encourage him. It got quite lively in here while we were away. Hey guys, it's been forever. Haven't seen you in... Well, I haven't seen you two of you before at all. I swear, every last one of you has the same reaction. He says he's the Lord, and that's due to plot contrivances. He's younger than when we knew him. The Lord. It's not that hard to make the connection, is it? The Lord was more purple, I thought. Don't associate people with their clothes. Use the faces, you brain-dead feral dog. I'm beginning to wonder if Yucky would be able to tell the difference between you and Francois, even if he wasn't a nut. Even if he wasn't nutso. Oh, also, here's my second brother and the maid. Didn't they come with you? They're busy flirting with each other in the present day. Aw, that's no fair. I want to see present day too. If you work hard enough, maybe you'll end up there. There's tons of different cakes to choose from too. Let's go to the Cheesecake Factory. I want to go too. But I put on some weight recently. I'm trying to shake it off. I don't want him to abandon me because I'm not to his liking. I love women with powerful appetites, Pauline. But then, Cheesecake Factory, here I come. Hooray, we can all go together. I can't even bring myself to make a jab at how he's always said exactly what she wants to hear. You come with us too, won't you, my dearest Mel? What, me? I don't know. I feel really awkward being the only guy with a bunch of girls. There's going to be so many of them there. If you want to fit in better, you can just dress up like a girl. Why is that the first thing that your mind jumps to? I think you'd look dashing as a girl, dearest Mel. You two would make a lovely pair of sisters. Then we'd have to go dress shopping for Mel first. Can you please not? If you want to come, Jackie, you can dress up all nice and pretty too. Like hell. And don't try to get a reaction on me either, because it won't work. I didn't know you were into that, Lord. You seem to really want to relive my fist obliterating your gut, boy. I would kindly like to see that, though. Not the Lord, but Yukimasa. Pauline, if it is what you truly desire of me, you are allowed to say no, you realize. If we're only here to faff about like fools, I will be taking my leave. You're just looking for any excuse to bail, aren't you? You seem really picky and not in a good mood, Saintess. More so than usual, I mean. That shouldn't be any surprise when the most upsetting man in the world is still within my line of sight. I don't think there's much for us to talk about this time, really. Yeah, what the heck? I've really got any screen time in this game. I'm calling my lawyer. And I look even more pathetic after this. You were only useful but you got snowy did not do in the right direction, boy formerly known as Mel. I'm not... Oh, never mind. It's not worth it. I too lost a few points with this story. Without that angel's help, both of us ended up villains. I actually feel like you might have gained some points. You're kind of more controlled here than in the main game. Very true. Hey, Yucky, can you do your catchphrase for me? My catchphrase? Pretend a violent goon just came crashing through the window and you can do whatever you want to him. Shall I kill him? Yes!
I'm not sure I would call that a catchphrase.
Yukimasa, remember what we agreed on? No more talking like that.
Of course, Pauline. It was merely acting for the girl.
Oh, okay, that's a relief. I may need to curse the beast again.
Anyway, he was a monster from start to finish. And everyone came into this knowing that, so I doubt public opinion was any worse than he already was.
We forgot to see his wicked smile more times in the main game, if I'm counting right.
Well, he's nothing if not consistent. Michelle may have talked him into helping out, but he never actually felt shame or regret about what he'd done. The closest he gets to breaking free from that is in the second door. Maybe what we need to do is knock his memories out of him again?
And bring Beastia back? Are you out of your mind?
That said, I'm glad I got to see everyone again, even at the cost of my reputation. I hope we can do this again sometime.
I explicitly said we wouldn't, as you might recall.
I mean, I guess, but...
At time change, so too to the heart, Saintess. That's right, well said, Nellie. It'd be super sad if you ended Requiem in the same place as the main game. Besides, you need to come to the Cheesecake Factory with us. You're never going to stop talking about this place, are you? You're all free to believe what you want. Nothing's going to change where I stand on this matter. You're stubborn, Saintess. That is sort of the prerequisite for cursing someone for a millennium, yes. Didn't you say your strong wishes come true, though? It's always really hard for us to see each other again. Does your us include my other half, the white-haired girl? What? You can't stand her, can you? I'll play nice with her next time, I promise. I'm not the girl I used to be, not anymore. I see. Well, if by some impossibly remote chance you do run into her, be sure to apologize. I doubt she bears any ill will over it, though. That's a promise. I'll tell her I'm sorry for make up for what I did. Nellie surprisingly well behaved with Morgana around. Although she was completely destroyed, so no amount of wishing will ever bring her back. But I won't stop you from trying. All right. Now I think it's about time we wrap this up. It's dragged on for far too long. It's not like we got to do this more than once a game, so I don't see any problem with taking it at a relaxed pace. There's relaxed, and then there's running around like a bunch of chickens with their heads cut off, if you're firmly in the latter category. Now farewell, everyone, until our swords cross paths once more in the boundless sphere of fate. Bye-bye, Saintess. See you. I hope we get to meet again eventually.
Young saint, I pray your next life will be a peaceful one, and I swear I will never cause you any more pain.
Goodbye. Stop dawdling, you two. We're leaving.
Right.
Later, guys. It was great meeting you.
So long, and see you again, perhaps.
A fitting place to end, I suppose. This always was the story of a cursed mansion.
Hey now, aren't you forgetting about someone?
What?
Sup.
Hey, it's Mr. Mask.
That's gonna be your worst one yet, Jaren.
Oh, right. I forgot your story was included in this, too.
Come on. How are you gonna just forget about one of the best stories in the game?
Whew, no idea he looked quite like that, but he sounds hot. Emion is a woman. Oh, huh.
Hey, both guys and gals can be hot. And I put money down on being a better man than every other darn guy in this game.
I can't really argue with that.
Who exactly is this, anyway? Right back at you, buddy. Who are you? The hero. I have the strangest urge to kick your smug teeth right out. And besides, wouldn't it make more sense for Michelle to be here to go over my part?
You're 100% correct. Let's leave this worthless man behind and go visit him in the present.
Stop right there. I'm not letting you go there again after how hard I fought to keep bringing you back.
Fine, then I'll summon Michelle here. He's probably busy flirting with Giselle right about now.
I feel terrible interrupting, so just let him be.
I thought you wanted to see him. Oh, I'm not denying that. I'm just hoping our reunion can be under different circumstances. Next time I see him, I want to be such a hottie and his eyes drip out of his skull, not this sad imitation of a zombie. Can you imagine the look on his face when he sees what I look like? It's gonna be great. Michelle has grown enough that I'm sure I'll have no trouble being friends with you even after you learn you're not a man. Darn straight he will. I pick him better than that. God, he has a job, friends, a girlfriend. How much more typically good guy can he get? Don't you dare insult me, Shell. For goodness sake, will everyone stop reading my mind? So, Amy? At the end of your story, was that like your boy inside thing? Nah, I'm a woman through and through. Just pretending to be a guy for Michelle. I do swing both ways, though. If we ever meet in another life, I'd love to take you out for drinks. Or anywhere else you'd like to go. She's trying to pick up someone she met 5 minutes ago. My heart skipped a beat. I'm getting serious, Lady, I don't know what that's supposed to be. Lady Obscure vibes from you and me? Well, I suppose we should talk a bit about Ascento Dele while we're here. The story was originally included in a preview pamphlet distributed before the main game was released, making it rather old. It was then reimagined into the game to our inclusion in Requiem. The general beats of the story are the same in both versions, but there's more meat on this one. Plus, it makes my motivations a little clearer. Seeing as though you started out getting closer to Michel for less than a noble purpose, then slowly warming up to him gave the ending a little more weight, I thought. And as a side note, Himion was briefly referenced in the main game.
I do remember that. It was a really brief reference.
During the scene in the mansion where Michel's spirit is breaking down, there's a line that goes, "At one point, a man with unusual disease stumbled across the mansion while wandering through the forest," but there's little more to be said about that. The man is talking about there is Himion. That's not all. In the final chapter, he sings a song of a flaxen-haired little girl, right? And he says it's a song of an old acquaintance of mine heard while traveling. That acquaintance is me. Oh, yes. I never made that connection. But it makes sense. There's no one else who could have heard it from. He would have said as much of it if it was from Giselle or his brothers. You ended up having a bigger part in the main game than I realized. And I'm glad I was finally able to show up proper here. It reminds me, didn't a rough modern-day design for you show up in the short game released after the first popularity contest? It did, but I'm not sure why you're bringing up something readers would have no way of knowing since it's not available in English. How was I supposed to know that? You were called out for the exact same thing just a few scenes back. Anyway, sorry to disappoint anyone reading this who happens to have seen that design, but it's staying in the idea bin for now. Aw, darn it, it read my mind. I was like, are they gonna show it? I'd love to see it. When that game was released, the staff still hadn't settled on what Requiem would end up being. They were exploring a bunch of possibilities, one of them being making a follow-up, light, cheerful game, which is where that came from. But they decided they really wanted to make something with more substance, that was also capable of standing on its own. So they poured their heart and soul into making Requiem. You have it in your hands now. I hope you're satisfied with how it turned out. Yep, that about covers it. You know, ever since the backstage event started, I felt more likely you've colluded with the author than the Lord. I don't think too hard about it. Now to talk a bit about the game you actually got, the main theme of Ascento Dele was friendship. That's a thread common in most of the stories included in Requiem, in fact. Friendship, and how easily these bonds can break. Very sad stuff. My friendship with Michel's fine and well, thank you. I just kicked the bucket a bit sooner than him. You and Jackie were both really fixated on finding far-off utopias, though. Your heart is off in dreamland, and you're not seeing what you already have within reach. All I have within reach now is a cursed mansion. Fair. Though the time period is a big factor of what happened to us two. My disease is much more manageable in the present day than back then. And Michel wouldn't have gotten sentenced to death by the church now either. I think it wasn't so much physical place we dreamt of, but the far future. That's an interesting perspective on it, actually. Like, their characters obviously weren't dreaming of a future, but they kind of were, like, in a way, idolizing a future we exist in today. Nah, my eyes are leaking. I thought you couldn't feel sad. Hush up and read the room. Well, I had my spot in the limelight, so y'all should head back. I hope we can see each other again sometime, Yumi. Everyone's gonna be going to the Cheesecake Factory. The what? It's a place where you can get all the cake in the world. Me and the other girls all decided we're going.
Sounds like fun. Then I suppose I'll join you and the other girls. Can't wait to meet them. It's not that kind of buffet. Hey now, poor manners to read someone else's mind.
Crude savages, the both of you. Let's be off then. Farewell, Naomi. Should our souls somehow cross paths once more in the boundless sphere of fate, I will consider acknowledging your existence.
What a kind of goodbye is that? My gut tells me that was some kind of ridiculously backhanded compliment, but I ain't gonna push it. Later, gang. Goodbye.
Bye! Yippee, we're back! Took you effing long enough.
I only fell asleep a couple times.
Hey, where's Francois? I booted his royal butt back where he came from. Can you imagine how absurd it would look if the three of us just be chilling down here waiting together, waiting for you to come back? Pshaw!
You had me scared for a bit there. I was worried I might not make the cut for the final get-together either.
Why wouldn't you? You're one of the gang.
Just felt really effing bad about what I did and don't think I deserve to be called that anymore.
Oh, I didn't realize you were capable of feeling regret, Beefcake.
You're the last person I want to hear anything about feelings from. Come on, Morgana.
I'm staying right here.
Get your little butt moving! I know you have complicated feelings about all this, and that's I have absolutely no right in making you do anything. But this was still our story, so we should be there.
Fine. Gang's all back together. Woo! And with this, our story is officially over. Thank you all so much for sticking around it. Now, some parting words from our heroine, Morgs.
What?
It'd be weird for me to have the last word in your game.
You can't expect me to come up with something on the spot.
Okay, Jackie, you go first. You think about what you're going to say while he's talking.
What am I supposed to say?
Whatever, just buck up and say something.
To all of you out there reading this, I obviously have no idea what you think or how you feel about our story, our lives. But I hope at least it was something that left an impression that will stick with you. It will. It has and it will. Life-changing story, this one. House of Fata Morgana and its branches. Love Alternative, its branches. Like, Love in general and its branches. Steins Gate, its branches. Seabed. Probably the biggest game changer games. Probably like the ones that are highest up there. The ones that really shifted my perspective, made me ask questions I never thought I'd ask. Katawa Sojo probably as well. Not as much, but it definitely like got me thinking about the struggles that other people face that I just never gave much time for before. But yeah, no. Every visual novel, I think, gives me a different perspective. Every visual novel adds something of value. You know? Is it always the most important thing, the most important lessons? No. But that doesn't have to be. It doesn't just have to be entertainment either. That's why I'm not a big fan of the super fan servicey games, because that tends to be all they focus on. Like, they have a story, but it's more about like a framework to have a setting in order to have all the like... It's like you know when you storyboard and you set up like different like pictures that kind of outline the different scenes you want to have, and then you kind of string them together in logical like narratives. Excuse me. I feel like the Rogue games, like the focused Rogue games, that their storyboards are practically the ecchi scenes, and then they just kind of find a way to tie them all together. I think the really powerful stories can absolutely have, you know, eroge or H content in them, but the story came first, and then the fan service is a supplement to it. That's my favorite way to digest these things, and I don't mind if it doesn't have fan service. Like, honestly, I think some of the best stories don't. But I also have no problem with the fan service if it has that context of like being part of a generally larger and more dynamic storytelling, rather than a means to an like instead of like the means to the end. But no, if there's anything that this game has done, it's left an impression. While I ended up screwing up things beyond belief, it was still my life, and I fought tooth and nail to make the best of the hand I was dealt. So it would mean a lot to me if some part of that could find meaning beyond the four edges on the screen. And I'm not sure what else to say. So I sincerely apologize to you sticking around this. I appreciate you sticking around this long. Thank you. That's it from me.
Nice. Now you're up, Morgs.
Very well.
Looking back, the series has been active on some form or another for quite a number of years. Whether you've been following along since the beginning or recently discovered Fata Morgana, I offer up unto you my blessing. Farewell, until we meet again. Okie dokie, everyone. Give him the biggest smile. Bye-bye.
See you guys. Until next time. Thank you so very much for playing our game. As the author, I would not normally make any sort of comment within the game itself, but with this being a side story, a bonus of sorts, I'd like to bend the rules a bit and extend my gratitude to you directly. I would also like to offer my sincerest apologies for the delays in Requiem for Innocence's release and thank you kindly for your patience. TL note, the local team did not consume enough caffeine to keep the deadline and have been locked up to take time to reflect on their mistakes. So the localization team has also had problems. But hey, don't be slave mastering them. I'd rather see game delays and have game properly delivered without breaking the team that's trying to bring it to us. Requiem is a deeply unpleasant and painful story, but I tried to sprinkle little morsels of hope throughout it. So hopefully you aren't coming away from it with a terrible aftertaste. As was mentioned in Imion's segment, we considered a number of possibilities with a follow-up to the House of Fata Morgana, but ultimately we settled on the story of Jacopo's and Morgana's past. I apologize to anyone who was hoping for something lighter, but this was the best way to touch on the themes I wanted to explore, and it feels like it fits in better with Fata Morgana this way. I'm glad I was able to tell this story, and I pray you were able to enjoy it. In writing Requiem, I spent many hours digging through the text of the original game's final chapter to make sure I didn't introduce any inconsistencies. While you only saw glimpses of what was in their hearts there, I feel like I was able to flesh out and give it real life here. Jacopo particularly was shackled by something until the very end, and I think I managed to expound on what exactly that was here. I can't say whether he'll be able to free himself from those shackles anytime soon, but I imagine he will at least be trying. Let's put that hard-working trait to good use. Moving forward from Requiem's timeline, we know that he makes the same mistakes in the main game's third door. But perhaps he too will be able to reclaim himself when he's released from this witch's curse. Maybe I should make him do a Reclaim Yourself marathon like Michelle. Now, while I said I was glad I could continue this story, I must confess it was in a way more difficult for me to write than Fata Morgana. Though there was a great deal of pain and suffering in the main game as well, it was not brought on by Michel's own failures, and in the end his actions are still good. Requiem is very much the opposite though. Writing a character who knows what they're doing is wrong, hates themselves for doing it, yet still barrels headfirst down a path is somewhat maddening to do. That said, I don't get to write much of Jacopo not putting on an act in for the main game, so hopefully you enjoyed seeing what's beneath the mask. There are a number of characters in Fata Morgana with multiple personas, and that's not an especially deep-rooted aspect of Jacopo's character. In fact, one of the reasons Jaren is so utterly lacking in presence is because I felt like it was a big part of too many existing characters. Oh, in pretense. So I made her the exact opposite. Getting inside Morgana's head was also rather difficult. She described her time in the brothel when she learned to experience joy, so I especially wanted to focus on making her feel more human. While she released herself from her curse in the end of the main game, that only brought her back from the negatives to dead neutral. And I hope one day she'll be able to turn squarely toward positive. A Requiem for Innocence was not only Jacopo's and Morgana's story, but it was also a story of friendship, companionship, and growth. The characters from the main game didn't have much in the way of proper interactions there, so I'm glad we were able to use the first half of Requiem to show them having fun living their lives without sacrificing what made Fata Morgana what it is. I'm especially fond of the Midsummer Festival scene and Jacopo carrying Morgana on his back under the sunrise. Yeah, I like that scene a lot too. What were your favorite parts? Alright, my favorite parts, I really liked the carrying on the back. I hated watching it, but I did like seeing his interactions with Odilion and the really logical connection that happened between being elevated to the position of Lord and eventually turning his back on the slums. I thought that was going to be really hard to express because in the main game I honestly couldn't tell you why. I came out of it wondering why he turned his back on his friend so quickly. I think I even commented on it at the time, but the way they read it out really made a lot of sense. It really connected that dot for me, and so I really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed Odilion as a character, even though he only had very little screen time. I also really like seeing Morgana in the cottage, like seeing more about that development and her thought processes there, just because it was really helpful to see her transition, because she felt really static from the time when she was freed from the slave carriage to like being captured by like the beast. Like she didn't feel like she changed or anything, and like she just kind of was like there. So now we got to see a bit more about what was going on in her mind, so I really liked that. And of course the music. The music is always the best part of these games. Well, I suppose it's time to draw the curtains for real. Thank you so very much for spending your time with me in the House of Fata Morgana, and I hope that one day we may cross paths again. Alright, achievement unlocked backstage. Bonus track fragment? A small reward for completing the game. Alright, we're going to see what this is. It sounds like it's small, and I'm getting tired, so I don't have much longer I'm going to be able to do this, but we might as well throw it on. Is it music? If it is, I'll just sit back and be quiet. Oh, interesting. Never mind. Let's see.
So, what's on the agenda for the day? What I want to do? There isn't anything in particular. Don't give me that look. I don't know what people do for recreation, because unlike someone, I didn't leave a life of leisure and luxury. Yes, that's right. I'm a dreadfully boring person. I imagine you've begun to regret bringing such a dull girl with you.
Never. Not in the slightest. Who are we, I wonder?
If you say so. But you chose what we're doing today, alright? Huh? You want me to sing? I don't mind. What are you laughing about? You didn't think I would agree? Okay, fine. I won't sing. Puppy dog eyes won't change my mind either. That's that. I'm not going to sing. Alone, that is.
That was cute.
Yes, you're singing with me. Go find someone who has a lute and ask to borrow it. You don't get any say on the matter. You did ask to borrow that, right? And got permission? None of the shenanigans you pulled at the festival?
Oh, is this supposed to be like the future Jacopo and her might have had if they'd actually gone out and explored the world?
We need to remain on good terms with everyone if we're going to live here. Well, good. I'm glad you could manage that much. At some point, we're going to do this again. You should purchase your own so you don't have to borrow one. That would certainly make things simpler, wouldn't it? Next time a merchant's in town, if they're selling a lute, buy it. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. As long as it has strings capable of making music, that's adequate. And if it's out of tune, you can tune it. And you can at least manage that, can't you?
Ooh.
It's exactly how you described it all those many years ago. Fields of wheat as far as the eye can see, swaying back and forth like waves of an ocean of gold. I had assumed that after all this time, you would have lost your fondness for such rustic scenery. That you preferred bustling cities, heavily guarded fortresses, and merchants peddling unusual wares. But it seems I was wrong. Thankfully. Huh? Yes, I'm quite fond of areas like this. They're pleasant and relaxing. I wonder if this really is where my father came from. I never told you this, but in my village I was revered as a saint. They're worshipped as the daughter of God. And to this day, a part of me still sees myself as such.
You're just an ordinary girl.
Maybe so. You've said as much so many times, I'm almost beginning to believe it. That is entirely on you, yes. If I truly am, then I have a father somewhere. One night, I overheard my mother muttering something. At the time, I assumed it was just a dream, but if what she said was true, my father was a mere vagrant. A man whose face I never once saw, whose name I never heard.
Would you like to meet him?
Frankly, I'm not sure. I wouldn't know what to even say if I did. He might not even know I exist. It didn't sound like he had any interest in staying with my mother, which does not speak particularly well of his character. If he had chosen to stay instead of abandoning her, then she wouldn't have had to lie about having a virgin birth. Maybe we could have even been a normal family. And the entire course of my life could have been different. What? Why is that your first reaction? You're not going to hunt him down and give him a piece of your mind, no. Any form of violence is forbidden. Not even if it's for my sake. Too many people have been hurt already. Which isn't to say I don't understand what you meant when you said the world would trample all over you if you didn't have the strength to fight back. As children, we were played both helpless to fight back against a cruel world. But I stand by what I said, no more. I once believed you would be a weak man, but I've realized I was mistaken. I know now you have more than enough strength, enough to take the lives of countless men. Some part of me always knew, but that's all the more reason. I don't want you to hurt anyone else ever again. Take any more lives.
Alright, I won't.
You swear it? I will have no choice but to deem you utterly irredeemable if you break that promise. Understood? What? No, it doesn't mean that I think you presently have redeeming qualities. Have you lost your mind? Honestly, this is not the time for silly do you like me games.
Oh, man, I can't do her voice much longer.
Don't tell me you're waiting for an answer, because you're never getting one. What? Fine, if you want to know what I think so badly. No, I don't much care for you. Oh yes, I was wondering. Other towns celebrate midsummer as well, yes? I see, so it's fairly standard summertime tradition. Huh? If you asked me to go, I would not object. What? Yes, I'm not particularly fond of the commotion, but it is a unique experience. There were no such festivals in the village where I was born. It was so small there was little in the way of entertainment to speak of. Perhaps I was their entertainment. A real saint appearing would indeed be cause for celebration. Life in the Lord's custody was miserable, but I'm not sure it would have been much different had I stayed. Maybe getting out was ultimately better for me. It was hardly any good time, by any stretch of the imagination, but it did allow me to experience a more normal world. Oh, there you go again. I've long since tired of hearing you go about ambition. Yes, I know. My definition of normal is too impoverished for you. I've heard it a dozen times now. But this is what I know. So climb down off your high horse and adjust. I'm not so accommodating a girl as to unconditionally support you in your endless endeavors to climb up and up and up. In fact, I intend to kick you back down in time you start trying. So keep yourself in check. I used to think I didn't have any right to interfere with your dreams. But now I'll be doing everything in my power to stand in your way. Keep that in mind.
I like this picture of her. Then I'll just have to find a new dream.
Excuse me? So you're going to look for a different way to be a fool then? Did you hear a single word I said?
Every single one, yes.
Why do I even bother? So what madness is brewing in that hollow skull of yours now?
I'm going to win your heart. Oh, bold claim, sir! But I like your chutzpah.
That was even worse than I imagined. You're possibly the world's biggest fool. Oh, what is it now? You want me to call you by your name? Why would I waste my breath?
Listen to how many times I'm saying your name.
You're not yourself today. You're never so forward. It's not right. Perhaps you ate something moldy. Besides, your name is just another word. It's nothing to get so worked up about. What are you, a child?
Disappointed I'm not what you thought?
I never said that. I'm not going to call you by your name, understood? For heaven's sake. Let's change the subject. The way you're silently staring at me is making my skin crawl. So, the lute. I would like you to teach me how to play the lute. Why? Is there something wrong with me wanting to know how to play? I suppose it is unusual, perhaps. I never had a chance to learn much of anything, though. I know little of how people normally entertain themselves, so I want you to catch me up on what I missed. And don't get upset if I'm a slow study. You do have an impossibly short fuse, after all. Something else. Let's see. You know how to fish, don't you? Would you go to the river sometime, as I recall? We still don't know much about this area. Perhaps there are rivers or lakes nearby. So, teach me how to do that too. Alright. Come on, don't just stare at me. And don't you know any words other than okay? Good heavens.
Will you say my name?
You don't know when to give up, do you? Is it that important to you?
Yes. I don't want you to forget.
Ah.
I don't want you to forget me again. I don't want you to forget what I look like. The sound of my voice. Or how I feel about you. I don't want you to forget what we talked about. The kind of man I was. Or all the time we shared together. Please. Don't forget me. God, it's like the worst fate I could imagine, just being forgotten.
Why would you ask me that now? Right as I was... If I had remembered, would anything have been any different? Could we have not ended up so far down the wrong path? If I had gone and found you, would that have stopped you from becoming what you did? No, forget it. It's not worth thinking about.
Can I hold your hand?
Pardon? You don't need to ask for permission for every little thing. You've always been like that, always asked permission or had me initiate any kind of physical contact. Except when you would put that ointment on my face, that is. Even that morning when you carried me home, you wouldn't just pick me up, you made me climb onto your back.
Because I promised I wouldn't touch you without permission.
You actually kept that ancient promise for all those years. Is there no end to your stupidity? I swear, someone needs to come up with a new word to describe you. Do as you please. Look at you, grown man shaking like a fawn. Sometimes I can't tell if you have a heart of stone or of glass. Though I suppose I'm not terribly different in that regard. Unable to even speak my heart unless there's no one else around. Unable to face you except through this childish fantasy. Not even able to show any vulnerability. You once said, who knows how many years ago, that being this close has an effect of making us more open. Well, I despise you more than anything in this vast world. You showed me happiness, then you showed me the depths of absolute despair. I have no idea what to do with you. So I didn't do anything. I couldn't do anything. What other choice did I have? Yet here you are, still lingering. After I released your soul, you went and put on a new set of shackles. What is even the point? Tell me, how many times have you tried to grasp at this illusion? How many times have I punished yourself? I suppose, if you want to think I'm just part of your illusion, I won't stop you. This whole realm is an impossibly idealistic fantasy. That's fine. It makes it easier for me to say this. I do regret some of what I did, that I misdirected my anger. Oh yes, I still revile you, of course. But even more so, I'm heartbroken. How did it all end up like that? So far gone, so irreversibly off the path. It was my words that ultimately pushed you over the edge, wasn't it?
I want to make amends.
I don't need your atonement. I told you already. It's all done. No curse, no forgiveness. Nothing more between us, ever again. Why then? Why am I here, talking to you? It's foolish. We're hopeless fools, the both of us. But it's not my fault. This realm is overflowing with so much warmth. I can't hold back everything I've kept locked away all those centuries. But in the end, it just felt wretched about it all. I would have rather never remembered. We spent our lives trying so hard to suppress those memories, fighting against our past, just as we're doing now. Alright, that's quite enough. Would you please let go of me now? Hello? I said let go. Let go of my hand. I love you. And I hate you. I'll never feel anything but hatred for you. There's nothing left in my heart but that. This is simply me showing pity for a pathetic lost soul. I was never able to let go of you.
Gosh darn it, Jacopo, why you gotta break the heart now?
Maybe you should have said so back then. Though I suppose you couldn't have. I had something else to lead me. I had someone else to lead my way. All you could do was sit back and watch me go. You were never one who could cry in front of others or hold on to someone for support. You had to rely on this sad fantasy to bring yourself to hold my hand. There truly is no hope for you. So what now? Are you going to just sit here all alone for the rest of eternity? Many, many ages ago, when I was still a child, I looked up to you. I might have even had some fondness for you. What? Perhaps so. Perhaps it would have been better if we had done this sooner. I want you to forget everything I've said. This is a realm where nothing bad ever happens, right? So I'd like to indulge in that childish dream for a little while longer. Have you finally calmed down? Ask all you want. I saw everything. I know good well how sad a man you truly are. Someone's waving at us from the distance. I'm still not particularly good with strangers, but the people in this land are all so kind. And you'll be holding my hand, won't you?
Of course. Let's go.
Yes. Let us be off.
What a beautiful lie. Look at that. Aww. So sweet. I kind of don't want them to end up getting together, even if they both were reincarnated and came across each other, because there's a lot of damage there. But it is beautiful to imagine what could have been. What might have been. Rather than showing you the world one day, someday, I'd like to bring you somewhere where your body and spirit can rest easy. Not as atonement for my sins, but because I want to see it too. Beautiful. I like how it changes the memory too. And here we are at the true ending of this game. House of Fata Morgana, Requiem for Innocence. What a finale. And the music is so freaking beautiful. I love how it reminds me, just like how when we ended Fata Morgana, how the main screen changed and the music was different. It's so beautiful. I'm always so bittersweet when I finish a story like this. And it's like, it brings back all the feelings from the original, you know? That's part of what makes it such a great addition. Kind of like the Muv-Luv stuff. It's like, it doesn't subtract, distract, or lessen its original core material. It just brings it back. It helps you remember it, cherishing the moments and the memories you made when you played that game, read that story, felt those characters' lives in your own. And this just makes it even more fulfilling. Someday, I'm going to reread the House of Fata Morgana. I have a really strong memory for things like games and for visual novels and books, so often I don't reread for a long time because it takes a long time for it to become so fuzzy that it's actually kind of enjoyable to go through again, because otherwise it's very, very repetitive for me. But I see myself someday, maybe 10 years from now, popping out the House of Fata Morgana, playing through it, And as I have the recollections flow back into me, I think I'm going to remember Requiem for Innocence. I'm going to see echoes of its story in the core story. I'm going to remember the backgrounds that we saw, the characters' lives that we don't get to see or fully explore, truly understanding where they came from, why they're there, and where they're going. And knowing that it was all so wonderfully orchestrated, powerfully motivated, wonderfully written. A classic, a champion, something that I wish I could encourage generations, hundreds, thousands of years from now to read. Like how we currently study things like the Odyssey, Gulliver's Travels, the Republic. It sounds really silly for me to be throwing out those like super like ground-setting classics, but in a world where we're drowning in media, I do think that true gems that could become these titans of history can get a little lost, because how few people have had a chance to read these stories. How small a community are we in the grand scheme of things? And that's depressing. And that's why I love making this channel and this content, is because I get the chance to share this passion with like-minded people. But I hope that even once I find somebody and help them see the power of these stories, help them really understand the emotions that I feel and the motivations that it gives me. The reason why my life is richer because of these stories, not because of YouTube. That's just icing on the cake. But reading visual novels helps me feel like a better person, a more open-minded person, to have experiences and share my emotions and feelings in ways that I just don't get to experience from movies or books. It's that beautiful middle ground, like I say, where visual novels, I think, encapsulate some of the best methods of storytelling, highlighting like art direction, music, setting, and narrative in all its harmony into something purely magical, unforgettable, life-changing. And this is what this is. It's a titan of the stories. It's a titan, and it should be cherished. Thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you especially to the patrons who help make this content far easier to create, helping make it so that I can make content more often and have the time and energy to be able to do so, for helping me select the stories that I play, and all the recommendations that came through when I first chose the House of Fata Morgana so long ago. It was you who helped make that happen. I don't know if I ever would have found this game on my own. It's one of those things where I don't tend to look at top charts. I tend to look at what catches my eye and listen to what people recommend. And so having that, I'm so grateful to you for helping me see it. So thank you, each and every one of you, for being a part of this community, for sharing this world with me, for sharing this time with me, for the views and likes and comments and everything. It all makes the biggest difference in the world. So thank you so much. I do have a bit of an announcement for anyone who happened to listen to the very end. Anyone who didn't is going to have to get a surprise. I have a surprise for everybody. There's a new release of the Fata Morgana series that was put out on console recently. PlayStation 4 specifically, I know. It comes in a bundle with the House of Fata Morgana, Requiem for Innocence, and a few side stories that weren't included in this. And I have that. So before we roll into what I was going to cover on Wednesdays after this, which I believe is Rewrite. I have to go back and check to make sure, but I think it's Rewrite. We're going to do that. So we got more Fata Morgana content coming. It will be considered a new series, but we're not going to do a wrap party because I want to just kind of tie it all together. So look forward to a great wrap party at the end of it all. But we're going to be jumping into that next time. So I hope you guys are ready. It'll be really interesting for me. I hope you enjoy and are excited about it. I certainly am. It's going to be really fun to catch people off guard for those who didn't stick around for the whole ending. So maybe don't mention it in the comments or the Discord quite yet, just so we can catch them off guard next week. It'll be really fun. So thank you guys so much. I hope you guys enjoy. Leave your comments of what you thought about this series as a whole. What were your favorite moments? Like the author asked, the reader, which includes all of us, what were your favorite moments? I was able to share mine. I want to hear yours. So thank you. And until next video, watching me up, see me in next. I'll see you there.